Welcome to Total Retail Talks, your podcast channel for retail knowledge.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of Total Retail Talks. I'm Joe Keenan, Editor-in-Chief of Total Retail, and I am joined on today's episode by Jill Feldman, the Vice President and General Manager of Kids Foot Locker. Jill and I are going to be discussing Kids Foot Locker's recently completed back-to-school shopping season and the success it had during that time, as well as kind of a look ahead to the busy Q4 holiday season that's upcoming. So thank you for joining me today, Jill.
Thanks, Joe. I'm delighted to be here.
So as I noted, Kids Foot Locker is coming off a very successful back-to-school season. Can you tell us a little bit about, in your opinion and in your thoughts, what led to that success and why you had a great back-to-school season?
Yeah, well, I think, compared to 2020, we really saw an increase in return to in-store shopping as kids were actually going back to school this year. Sometimes, for some kids for the first time in over a year. And for our shoppers, we really know that they love the shopping experience. Parents find it as a way to bond with their kids, and for kids, it's really sometimes a social activity with their friends. So it's really an exciting time for back to school. And so, because kids were returning to the classrooms this year, we did see a really nice increase in spend in the key categories that we sell: footwear and apparel and accessories. Specific to Kids Foot Locker, we really offer accessible sneaker culture with really premium shoes and apparels for kids of all ages. Right now there's a lot of momentum around sneaker culture. And so that's been one thing that's been really key to our success, is just the momentum and the brands and the styles that we carry. There's really incredible popularity around Jordan retros and iconic styles from Nike. But we're also seeing beyond that, we're seeing a big trend around running inspired shoes from brands like Adidas and Puma and New Balance. And I also think that, with people getting very used to kind of feeling comfy and cozy in their homes in the past year, that people have been really loving kind of the ease and style that they can get from the type of apparel that we sell. And so for back to school, we saw a really strong apparel business as well. If kids aren't required to wear an actual uniform to school, we find them kind of wearing this unofficial uniform of a hoodie and shorts and tees. And as they transition to the fall, maybe a pair of joggers. And we have a really terrific assortment here. So I think those are some things that have been key to success. And because kids didn't necessarily go back to classrooms in 2020, we saw a pretty big resurgence in accessories like backpacks that maybe you don't buy every single year. And so this was definitely a year for buying backpacks. And then, of course, when people are in store, it's easier to pick up a pack of socks and kind of replenish some of those closet staples. And, I think the final thing that was pretty interesting for us is that we really saw a strong business around our preschool sizes. And I think this is also really due to probably a lot of these younger kids might have missed their very first back to school last year, might have stayed home. And so we saw preschool sizes doing quite well. I think, parents were buying kids a new pair of shoes as they might have headed to the classroom for the first time ever.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And one kind of follow up there, Jill, and I think it'll help provide some context around the conversation is, when you talk about your customer, what ages are we talking? I mean, we say Kids Foot Locker. What's kind of the target demographic that you're going after?
Yeah, so for the most part, our kids' shoe sizes go up to about age 10. So we're really talking kind of elementary school kids, but we sell shoes really for everybody, even the littlest sneakerheads that still are in the crib. So really kids of all ages, but once kids kind of graduate from kids sizing, then they really go on to shop at Foot Locker.
Which makes it interesting is that, you talked about the kids going into stores and kind of having that experience sometimes with their friends, with their parents, obviously, in a lot of cases. So the kids are, I would imagine the kids are influencing the actual purchases, but then, the transactions are being, the money is coming from the parents. Is that kind of what you're seeing in terms of the influence that kids are having on the purchase decisions that their parents may be making?
Yeah, it is a really interesting dynamic because we really do have two sets of target customers for Kids Foot Locker. We have the parents who, as you mentioned, at the end of the day, they drive the car to the store. They have the credit card or the cash the kid's going to pay with. But we see increasingly younger kids being pretty influential in the purchase decision. When I think a number of years ago, we kind of used to use 7 or 8 years old as really the first age where kids started to influence the styles and the brands they wanted, and even where they wanted to shop. And we did some pretty interesting research this past year, and we really saw that parents are taking cues from kids as young as 4 or 5 years old now. So it's kids definitely are, know what's going on, and they're probably more advanced than ever, and so they are becoming increasingly influential in that purchase decision.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I
Mhm.
wanted to talk about, something that Kids Foot Locker did this past back to school season that is really cool. So the company donated backpacks and essentials to thousands of students in need across both the U.S. and Canada. So can you tell us a little bit about that initiative, and then kind of maybe a second part to that is just why things like this and corporate social responsibility and programs such as the backpack donations are such a key part of the Kids Foot Locker business?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, for back to school, our local marketing teams really created this program to give away backpacks filled with school supplies during back to school events that we hosted in about 10 different cities all around the US. And, I think this was a great initiative, but this is just really one of many initiatives of its kind that we do at Kids Foot Locker and Foot Locker. So the programs that we do range from things like this backpack giveaway. We've also improved classrooms in specific cities. We've redone basketball courts in the past. And so those are smaller and a little bit more localized. But then what I think really stands out is that at a much larger scale, last year, Foot Locker Inc., announced a $200 million commitment to really help our Black team members and customers in the communities we serve. So it's a really important part of our DNA to give back to our communities. And the reason that it's so important to us is that it's really important to our customer. Our customers, especially Gen Z, we know that they want to do business with brands who have values that are really aligned with their own. And I think increasingly people really expect brands to actually put their money where their mouth is. And I think that that's exactly what we're doing at Foot Locker.
Yeah, and I think that last point is especially true about younger consumers as well, that they want to do business, like you said, with brands that share common values. So that's kudos to you and the company as a whole on some of the work that you're doing in those areas.
Thank you.
So let's, back to school just completed, or we quickly move into kind of Q4 holidays. There's not much of a time gap in between the two. So I'm curious if there are lessons that you can take, some of the behaviors you might have seen during the back to school season that might help position Kids Foot Locker for what I imagine is a busy Q4 holiday season for the brand and company.
Yes, it definitely is. So I think one of the biggest lessons really from this past year, in addition to back to school, is that we have to keep a really strong, robust pipeline of product coming. There have been a lot of supply chain challenges, a lot longer transit times than what we're used to. And so I'd say our merchandising teams were really aggressive in ensuring that we received our fall and holiday product early in the season. We started receiving boots and fleece as early as June, if you can believe it, just to make sure that we had it for that transition to fall and also for holiday. And so, for the holiday season, I think what's going to be key for us is just to continue to offer our customers some of the high heat, high energy sneakers that they really love and that they, expect, but also really balance that along with a lot of giftable kind of items like fleece sets and hoodies and boots from UGG and Timberland and Crocs and, a lot of classic sneakers as well. So I think it's really about having a great balance in our assortment to make sure that we can serve customers whenever they want to shop.
Yeah, and I think that point you make about kind of staying ahead of the supply chain with those inventory buys, it's really interesting. You hear, this demand, and a lot of cases, product is stuck at whether it's not being manufactured as quickly or if it's stuck at a port. So it's kind of thinking even further ahead than maybe even normal to get product in the stores and have it available for your online shoppers as well as a key point. Which leads me into a follow-up in terms of the in-store experience. You mentioned at the outset, Jill, that for many, they're coming in the stores again for the first time after the COVID and what the impact that's had on brick and mortar businesses. Tell us a little bit about at Kids Foot Locker, it's really an experience. Kids are coming with either their friends, their parents, in some cases, their brothers and sisters. Tell us a little bit about how you've kind of had to evolve that in-store shopping experience over the last year plus, and what you're doing to bridge that online experience that so many have gotten used to over the last year, as plus with that in-store experience as well.
Sure. So we have taken many precautions in the past year. So some of the things that we've had to evolve is really reducing our store capacity. We put social distancing measures into place, and of course, enhanced cleanings, and our associates wear masks. But this back to school was actually the first time we were able to do any of the events like the backpack giveaway for the past year. And as you mentioned, that experience piece is really a big part of what makes Kids Foot Locker special. And so we've been kind of slowly bringing back some of those more experiential pieces. And, we've even gone so far this year as to, in August, we started testing a couple additional experiences in our stores, a creativity corner, which was, a table and chair set up for kids where they could color. Some stores had hopscotch. We were giving out stickers. So we were really excited to be able to bring back some of those things that people really love about Kids Foot Locker. Well, in this case, some of these things were new, and I think we hope that over the next year, we can bring back more local events and activations that really make us special. But to the second part of your question about kind of bridging the online and offline channels, we're continually working to make sure that we offer customers the best experience, regardless of which channel they want to shop. So we did last year roll out buy online, pick up in store, and we continue to make enhancements there because there are a lot of people who really now prefer the convenience that they can get from shopping at home and either shipping to their homes or picking it up in the store. But we also know that for our customer, there is something kind of irreplaceable about that in-store shopping experience where you can, talk to a really knowledgeable associate and you can try on, as many pairs of shoes as you want, and you can touch and you can feel the product. And I think for people who are so emotionally connected to the category like our customers are, that's really important. But we're certainly looking to always exceed our customer expectations, kind of wherever or however they prefer to shop.
So going into Q4 and the busy holiday season, I'm interested in sort of the marketing channels that you've potentially are investing in. Maybe this has been informed by what you saw during back to school season. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing in terms of the marketing ways that you're trying to communicate with your customer in areas that you think are opportunities as you look to capitalize on hopefully a busy Q4 holiday season for Kids Foot Locker.
Yeah, what I think is interesting about Kids Foot Locker is that in the past, we've really drafted off the efforts of what we consider kind of our big brother, which is Foot Locker. But this holiday season and really into the future, we really are looking to create more awareness of the actual Kids Foot Locker brand itself. So I'd say for holiday, in addition to all the kind of tried and true blocking and tackling channels like SEM and paid social and Facebook DPAs, we're also really exploring new ways to use social platforms like TikTok. And I think what's unique for a kids brand like Kids Foot Locker is that when we're on these channels, we're really speaking to the parents because, these platforms don't allow kids under 13. Yeah. So it allows us to be very thoughtful and really focused about the type of content that a parent would want to see on these platforms. And so back to school was actually the first time that we had really used TikTok for Kids Foot Locker specifically. And we're going to continue to increase those efforts, really using content creators who are both connected to sneaker culture, but also all about having fun with their kids. That parents can really relate to. And we hope to continue to use these channels to really give parents helpful tips. So whether it's styling or what to buy for your kids or, just having fun. And I think a lot of kids brands go really hard with their marketing and back to school and holiday and might go a little dark during the fall. But I think what we're seeing as a real opportunity is to continue to drive awareness and consideration throughout the fall so that we're really top of mind when people are ready to purchase for the holiday season.
And you mentioned an interesting dynamic, Jill, in terms of the marketing channels that you're essentially speaking to the purchaser, the parent in most cases, but you talked about earlier how much influence the kids are having on those purchase decisions at this point. I'm interested in, is there any ways that you can actually kind of gather and collect feedback from those kids that are wearing the product, or just whether it's your associates having conversations with these kids when they're coming into your stores, or other ways that you can kind of get the sense of what kids like about the experience, or what brands they're most interested in, or the styles. Tell us a little bit about that and how that might factor into marketing efforts as well.
Yeah, so that's an interesting question you ask, because it's something that we're making, I think, some pretty big efforts on. In the past, we have relied on really our store associates, as you mentioned, to kind of bubble up that feedback to us about what are kids wearing, what do they prefer, what's missing in our stores, just so we can stay ahead of the trends. But actually, in a few weeks, we're going to be piloting an online forum that's specific to Kids Foot Locker. So it's made up of parents, but we're recruiting people who are also willing to kind of sit with their kids, and so that we can actually get feedback in more real time about a variety of different topics from both kids and parents. Because, as you mentioned, kids are super influential in the purchase decision, and so we want to make sure that we're actually hearing from them as well. This online forum is something that Foot Locker has been doing for a long time. It's, of course, a lot easier with a Foot Locker customer because they're of an age where they can participate on their own. But we're really excited for this kind of parent and child forum to start to get more insights on really a range of topics.
And then my final question, Jill, is just kind of a forecast, looking ahead type question in terms of the consumer behaviors that you're seeing now. And what are some of the things that you think might be long-term behavioral shifts, and kind of planning for 2022, especially it's a challenge in such a fluid environment. But I'm just curious, at Kids Foot Locker, what are some of the things that you're forecasting as for next year as well?
Yeah, so I think there's a number of kind of macro trends from consumers that we're seeing today, and we think will continue to be important into 2022. And, the first is just, I think, this continued casualization. I don't think being comfortable and casual is going anywhere, especially for kids, right? Kids love to be comfortable. And so I think that that's going to continue to be really influential in what kids want to buy. And, I think with that, sneaker culture continues to gain momentum. And I think it's really because sneakers allow people to express their individual style, all while being quite comfortable. And I think it'll have an influence on, this active apparel continuing to trend. And I think another major trend that we're seeing is just that people want a way to kind of express their individuality. And so a couple trends that are, I think, interesting around that is what we call jewelry. And then also like around the ability to customize your shoes, like gibbets on Crocs. So jewelry is, exactly what it sounds like. It's jewelry for your shoes. And so with Foot Locker, we've had some pretty interesting collaborations this past year where we've introduced that, and we'll continue to do that. And then I don't know if you're familiar with gibbets, but they're the little charms that you can put into the holes of your Crocs, and things like that are an easy way to kind of customize your own apparel and footwear. I think is going to continue to be a trend. And I think from a consumer behavior, we will also see people, I think, people are somewhat getting trained now to expect that if they see something they like, they should probably go ahead and buy it now, just because it's, I think the days before the pandemic, where people really waited to find a discount or coupon, that's not really the case anymore. So I think we'll continue to see really low promotions from retailers. And I think consumers are kind of being retrained to buy product if they really want it, to buy it as soon as they see it, just knowing that there have been a lot of supply chain challenges.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention, that that they're worried that product might not be in stock if they wait another couple days or a week or come back to it, that then they could miss out on that opportunity. So that's a great one. And then also kind of the opportunity, it would sound like, for Kids Foot Locker to expand into some of those accessory categories, not just obviously the brand is known for as a footwear company, but some of those accessory categories could be an opportunity as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something we're talking about a lot. We've already seen huge increase in both our apparel and our accessories business, and so for a lot of our customers, they really kind of want that full head to toe look, and so we're really in a great position to be able to provide that. So it's definitely something that we're continuing to really push on as we go into 2022.
That's great. Something to look forward to. So
Yeah.
I want to take the opportunity to thank Jill Feldman, who is the Vice President and General Manager of Kids Foot Locker, for joining us on today's episode of Total Retail Talks and telling us all about the company's successful back to school shopping season, as well as kind of a look ahead to the Q4 holiday season. So thank you for joining me today, Jill.
Thank you, Joe. I really enjoyed speaking with you today.
Thanks for listening. For more information on this podcast, please check out our podcast channel page at mytotalretail.com/podcast for show notes. Total Retail Talks is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. Make sure to subscribe on our podcast channel page as well. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a few moments to rate and review this podcast. Thanks, and until next time, this has been Total Retail Talks.